You know, the night shift. For most people, it's just a job, right? But for some, it becomes the backdrop for a real-life horror story. Today, we're going to break down 4 true, deeply unsettling stories from the night shift. We're going to look for the terrifying patterns that connect them and see what happens when the ordinary, the mundane, turns menacing. So, get this. This single, chilling line was said over the phone to a gas station clerk working all alone. It just perfectly captures the core vulnerability we're going to explore today, being an isolated target, a known person in a totally unknown situation. This is the exact moment a prank call stops being a joke. So, what is it that makes these encounters even possible? Well, it all starts with the setting. The night shift, it creates this profound solitude, right? You're basically this little island of light and activity, surrounded by a huge ocean of darkness and quiet. And that exposure, that's the foundation for everything that's about to go wrong. And look, this isn't just some vague feeling. It's the cold, hard reality across all these stories. We see it in a gas station off a dead highway, a dive bar after all the familiar faces have gone home, and yeah, even the electronics section of a massive Walmart at 2 in the morning. In every single case, the environment itself is the first problem, where, like one worker said, every customer starts to feel a little stranger. Okay, so this brings us to the first subtle signs of danger. These are those initial, unsettling moments when something just feels off. And this is where that internal battle begins, the fight between telling yourself you're just being paranoid and listening to that little voice in your head that's screaming something is very, very wrong. And you can see this battle play out right here. On one side, you have that voice in your head trying to rationalize everything. Oh, it's just a prank call. But the unsettling reality? The caller knows exactly how quiet and empty that store is. Or he's just an odd customer, but his story is full of holes, makes no sense. Or he's just wandering around, but he's not shopping, he's watching. Every single time, our brain tries to normalize the threat, and every time it's fighting a losing battle against a creepy, creeping reality. And man, this quote just hits it home, doesn't it? This is from the gas station worker, and it's so important. It's not just a thought, it's a physical feeling. That heavy feeling in your stomach, that's your body's alarm system. And a lot of the time, it goes off long before your conscious mind is even ready to admit you're in danger. So when does that gut feeling become undeniable fact? Well, that's what we're talking about now, the point of no return. This is that moment in each of these stories where all the ambiguity just vanishes, the threat becomes absolutely certain, and the whole situation just escalates dramatically. You can literally map out how things went from weird to dangerous. It starts small, with the prank caller's laugh suddenly sounding a little too real. Then it gets worse. The gas station worker spots a second person hiding out by a car on the security monitor. In the bar, the threat becomes explicit with that creepy proposition to step outside. And finally, for the Walmart employee, it's that horrifying realization that her supposed rescuer is actually leading her toward an exit with no cameras. Each point is a step deeper into real danger. But the Walmart story, wow, that one needs its own breakdown, because this wasn't just some random crime of opportunity. No, this was a calculated plan. First, you've got the lookout, a guy who just watches and records. Then comes the lure, a woman who fakes a rescue to gain trust and get control. And finally, the trap. She steers the employee toward a total blind spot. The level of coordination here is just absolutely chilling. But here's the thing, these aren't just stories about predators. They are absolutely stories about survivors. And this is where we shift our focus to those instincts kicking into action. These are the critical moments where the people in these stories refuse to be victims, and their fight or flight response kicked in, with a huge emphasis on fight. I mean, just look at this. It's like a montage of survival instincts firing on all cylinders. In these moments of pure terror, they didn't freeze, they hit the panic button. They locked the doors. The bartender, she drove straight to the police station. They sent those critical, if I stop replying texts to family. One of them even grabbed a metal shaker to use as a weapon. These were not passive victims. They took decisive, life-saving actions. And then there's this. The most powerful, raw example of that will to live. A desperate, powerful scream for help. It's the ultimate act of defiance, right? A total refusal to be led quietly into the dark. It's the sound of someone fighting back with the most basic tool they have, their own voice. But just because you get away doesn't mean it's over. We have to look at the haunting aftermath, the fear that sticks around, and the, often complete lack of resolution that follows these terrifying events. And what's so awful is that the terror doesn't stop. Sometimes it's made even worse by people who just don't believe you. The gas station worker's boss actually dismissed her entire experience, suggesting she had just gotten spooked. Can you imagine? That kind of invalidation is like a second trauma, making you question your own sanity after you know for a fact that what happened was real. And you'd think, okay, there must be clues, right? Well, that's where the frustration really kicks in, because the investigations just hit one dead end after another. In the dive bar case, the license plate was a ghost plate, totally unregistered. The car at the gas station, it was reported stolen from over 100 miles away. And even with a clear picture of the man's face at Walmart, the case is still just waiting. Every single lead just evaporates. Which leads us to maybe the single most chilling fact in all of this. The number of people caught? 0. Across all 4 of these detailed, absolutely harrowing accounts, not a single one of the people responsible has been identified or captured. They just melted right back into the night. And just when you think it can't get any creepier, there's one last detail from that Walmart story. As the employee was running away, the woman who was trying to grab her yelled for her to come back, using her name, a name she had never, ever given her. This wasn't random. This was a targeted, premeditated attack, which makes the fact that they got away even more terrifying. Every single person in these stories felt that initial warning, right? That heavy feeling in their stomach. And their survival, ultimately, came down to their decision to finally act on it. So it really makes you think, doesn't it? When your gut screams danger, do you listen?